Hey guys, welcome back to Recreational Sniper. Today it's nice and cool out, so thought I would bring the 308 back out, and we're going to try to record some velocity at a different temperature range so that we can check out the muzzle velocity variation due to temperature change in ammunition and ambient air temperature, as well as the rifle's chamber temperature. And also, after that's done, which I'm not gonna do a whole lot of that, I'm gonna probably shoot about 10-15 shots and record and average the velocity at this current temperature, which is 70 degrees. Last weekend when I shot and recorded data, it was 80 degrees. So there's maybe gonna be some changes. Not 100% sure on that. After that, I brought the 5.56, and we're going to be checking out some hand loads, some that I loaded with the 80.5 grain Burger full bore bullets, and I'm using Hodgson's Lever Evolution powder. So we're going to check that out and see how it goes. Right now I'm going to hang this target. We're going to get behind the 308, record some data, some velocities, and then as it warms up, after we record our data a little bit, I'm going to switch over to the 5.56, and we'll see how that goes, and see what kind of velocities I get, and hopefully we get some good accuracy out of it, and I don't have to change my seating depth too much. But right now we're just trying to see what kind of velocities I'm getting with that particular bullet with that particular powder. So let's get to it. Alright, got the target hung up. I think I am going to do some prone shooting today, just for accuracy purposes, and see how the differences in group size can be from shooting off the bench and shooting prone, because depending on what you have your rifle resting on, whether it's a bench, a hard, bench surface, or if it's on the ground or on a bag, it can affect the harmonics of the rifle and can affect your group size. So we're gonna probably check that out too. But first I'm gonna shoot off the bench, get me at least 10 rounds downrange to average out the muzzle velocity variation for 70 degrees. And then we will check for accuracy, and then we'll shoot off the ground and check for accuracy there and see if anything changes. So I'm going to go ahead and get this rifle lined up on the target, and then I will have to adjust my chronograph to match. Thought maybe hooking the mic there would be a good spot for it, but maybe not. Alright, so that's a good spot. We'll just put it right there. Alright guys, so I'm going to try to get this rifle actually lined up on target here. Alright, we're on target. Just so y'all know, because I am going to be standing in front of this thing for a second. We are empty, nothing in the chamber. Now I've got to, once I get the rifle lined up where I want it, in line with the target, now I've got to set my chronograph in line with the rifle. Alright, so that looks like that probably will work. Get out our data book here. Always really important that you keep and record everything when you're doing this kind of testing. So I'm going to check the temperature on the ammunition is showing 67.6, and chamber temperature 68.5. So it's not exactly 70 degrees, but it is pretty close. And before we get too crazy with this, I had to go get some earplugs. But we'll go ahead and say This is our range is actually 101 yards, and because I checked that with the rangefinder, temperature is, we're going to call it 70 degrees. It's pretty dang close, and by the time I actually start shooting, we're going to say it's 70. And it may seem silly and a little over the top to actually bring the Kestrel out and take a barometric pressure reading, but could help you get a better understanding of what's going on over time. So this is saying the air temp is 67 degrees. Humidity 74. 74.9, 75. Saying 29.53 for the barometric pressure. That's inches of mercury. That's what I prefer to use. Currently we have a slight breeze of 1.9, 2.1 miles an hour coming from your direction where you guys are pointed towards me, which is about 45 degrees to the target. And now it's actually switched and going back the other direction. Alright, so humidity today 65%. And we're shooting the Federal Gold Medal 175 grain Sierra Match King. And I think I'm going to go ahead and do 20 rounds. Since I've got time, the temperature's not going to rise too quick on me. I'm going to go ahead and do 20 rounds and get 20 recorded velocities. And I'm actually going to shoot a 20-shot group just to see what it's like with this 308. But I'm going to go grab me some earplugs before things get serious. A little bit of a note on how far to set your chronograph away from your muzzle. Some people like 10 feet. Usually 10 feet is pretty recommended, and it helps to eliminate a lot of variables, like if you're not running a muzzle brake on your rifle and all of that wind and hot burning gas goes with the bullet towards your chronograph, sometimes it can wiggle and kick the chronograph off, and resulting in like errors and missed recordings and that sort of thing. And sometimes it'll change the velocity recordings like a lot, and it'll get like really wide extreme spreads. But me personally, I like to set mine about 5 to 6 feet from the muzzle. It seems to work fine with me. All of my rifles have muzzle brakes on them, and I don't really have any issues there. So one of the goals too here is when I am setting up to shoot is I'm going to try to keep the round out of the chamber until I am actually ready to shoot, and then chamber the round and fire within 1 to 3 seconds. And the reason why is the longer that round sits in the chamber, the more it's going to heat up, which will change the muzzle velocity. And not by a lot, but it will, and it won't give me accurate results for shooting, you know. As far as what my goal is to record the muzzle velocity variations. And so if I allow those rounds to heat up to, you know, as the chamber temperature heats up, if I allow those rounds to heat up, then they will get to a point to where those rounds are no longer 70 degrees. They might be 90 degrees or 100 degrees. And at that point, the velocities I'm recording aren't the 70 degree velocities that I want. So it's all about, when you're building your ballistic charts, you got to have the right data, and it's got to be accurate data, and you got to make sure that you're controlling as much as you can as far as all the variables. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to shoot 5 rounds, take a break, let the barrel cool back down for 5 minutes or so, shoot another 5 rounds, let the barrel cool down, and so on until we get 20 rounds to the barrel, and then we'll go and check the target and see what it looks like. All right, so let's go. .24-30. 24-10. 24-33. If these velocities seem really low, keep in mind this is a 16-inch barrel and these are 175 grain bullets. .24-31. 24-09. Alright, so we're going to take a 5-minute break, let the barrel cool back down just a little bit, because the chamber and the barrel are both, at least the outside right now, feels like it's about 100 degrees instead of 70, so I'm sure the inside of the chamber is quite a bit warmer than that. But right now we're getting some really tight extreme spreads. Looks like about 34 feet per second is our extreme spread currently on those first 5 rounds. Been a few minutes and the barrel has cooled back down. It does have one warm spot right here in the middle. It's cool towards the muzzle and it's cool back here at the chamber. But right in the middle, I think I temped it at like 75 degrees. So as long as the chamber's cool, that's going to be the thing that's affecting our temperature muzzle velocity variation the most. So we got 5 more rounds loaded, and we're gonna send one down range. It's 24-21. 24-02. 24-33. 24-19. 24-13. And it's warmed back up a little, so we're gonna wait another 5-6 minutes or so, let it cool back down. It's cooled back down a little bit. Check the chamber temperature and it's about 73 degrees. Our ammunition is still reading about 68. So we're gonna rock on here and send another 5 rounds down range. Now we got one in there. 2442, 2384. Every once in a while you want to check, make sure you're still in line with your chronograph. 2394. 2412. 2399. So far so good. Everything seems to be staying relatively the same velocity and in this temperature range. Our extreme spread so far has changed a little bit. We got one that jumped up to 2442, and we got one that dropped down to 2384, but still not terrible. It's like 50, what is that? About 58 feet per second. Extreme spread there, something like that. We're gonna let this thing cool down for just a little while. I don't want to let it cool down too much more because our ammo temperature is actually getting, as it's heating up outside, our ammo temperature is getting a little warmer, but I am going to give it a few minutes. Last 5 rounds, and then we'll go take a look at the target, put up a new target, and we'll shoot off the ground. Probably going to try to shoot a couple 5-shot groups off the ground and see what we get, or maybe just one 10-shot group. I hadn't really decided, but we'll see how it goes. .2416. 2423. 2407. 2412. 2414. So I'm going to do the math real quick, check out our extreme spread and our average velocity, and then we will compare that to the day that I come and shot and it was 80 degrees out. So let's check that out real quick. So we got the velocities average and our extreme spread calculated. So the last time we were out here, we're shooting, it was 80 degrees. We got an average of 2403.3 feet per second and an extreme spread of 57. Today it's 70 degrees, 10 degrees cooler, and we got an average of 2415.2 and an extreme spread of 58. So the extreme spread is actually almost the same. It's just 1 foot per second higher. The velocity, though, is actually 12 feet per second on average faster. So that could be in part due to the barrel getting broke in. They do tend to speed up a little bit over the first couple hundred rounds. And currently this barrel only has about, I'd say, 60 rounds through it at this point. So there's a chance that these readings may continue to rise for the next 150 rounds or so, 150 rounds. And, but that's kind of the point of doing this and coming out and recording these every once in a while. As you get higher round counts on your barrel, is you're going to constantly be actually adjusting your ballistic charts as your barrel gets more and more rounds on it. So basically right now I'm still breaking this barrel in. I really probably am not going to take it out to shoot real long range with it until at least I get about 200 rounds on it. or at least 100, but because of the reason that it is going to continue to increase in velocity just a little bit every time I shoot it until it hits that equilibrium, gets over the hump, they call it, and the velocity will, from there, after it reaches that high point, it will very slowly start to deteriorate as the barrel gets worn. But hopefully it'll maintain a very cool level of velocity for a long time, because these low speed rounds, because they're heavy, have a lot less barrel wear and that sort of thing, and I should expect to get about 5,000 rounds of barrel life out of this. So we're gonna get down on the ground, shoot prone. I gotta go change targets, but we're gonna drop down and shoot prone a couple of rounds and see if we can shoot a couple groups and see if our group size kind of shrinks a little. That's what I'm hoping. So let's get to it. Alright, so we're moving on to shooting some hand-loaded 223, and I'm using an 80.5 grain Berger full bore target bullet on top of Lever Evolution, and I increased the powder charge in 0.3 grain increments, so 3/10 of a grain, and I'm gonna see what we get for velocity, and the goal is to try to get around 2,700 feet per second, but we're starting out right at 22 grains. These are a little bit too long to fit in the magazine, so I have to single feed them. And I didn't bring the right magazine with me, so... Oh. $21.79, $21.01, $21.09, $2,089, $21.37. We're gonna go to 22.3 grains. $2,091. $21.52. $2,092. $21.64. $21.09. Now we're going to go to 22.6 grains. $21.60. $21.50. $21.90. $22.18. $22.01. I'll let the barrel cool down just a little bit. Alright, so we let it cool down just a little bit, and I'm going to shoot 10 more rounds and go check out this target down here, and then I've got 25 more rounds to shoot and record on. So we're going to start this at 22.9 grains and go to 23.2. 22.57, 22.18, 22.08, 21.87, 22.02, going to 23.2 grains now. 2243, 2287, well, I've had some issues with this particular batch of primers in the past, and these are some CCI 450 Magnum primers, and occasionally, I'm not sure why, but occasionally they won't go off on the first pull, but then they go off on the second. But we got a 2211 on that one. It's 2241, 2270. All right. Take a break, let this cool down, maybe go look at this target. So the gun's cooled back off just a little, and we're going to start back with 23.5 grains. 2354. 2324. 2342. 2359. 2331. All right, we're going up another 3/10 to 23.8 grains. 2366. 2388. 2419. 2373. 2339. Shoot 5 more rounds here at 24.1 grains, and then we'll let it cool down, and then I've got 10 more to go, and that'll be it. 2411. 2514. 2424. 2484. 2437. Yeah, that barrel's pretty warm. I'm gonna go ahead and let that cool down for a little bit. Going to 24.4 grains. 2525. 2527. 2543. 2506. 2523. I'm gonna go to 24.7 grains. This will be the last 5 rounds. 2557. 2555. 2616. 2539. 2543. So we're back at the house after the range. Actually, truth be told, it's a couple days after the range, but you know how these things go. Sometimes we can get right to finishing up the video in the same day, and sometimes it might take a couple days to get back to it and to finish up this latter part. And this section is something I like to call target review and data analysis. So for the purposes of long range shooting, recording data and looking at your targets is extremely important. So we're going to start with the 308 because I'm really kind of focused on working with it lately. And we did a test the first time shooting this rifle, the first 20 rounds through the rifle. It was roughly 80 degrees outside, and at 80 degrees, ammunition temperature and ambient air temperature relatively the same at 80 degrees. We got an average of 2403 velocity and an extreme spread of 57 feet per second. And that was for 19 rounds. I technically shot 20, but actually that was for 18 rounds. I technically shot 20, but I did not record number 2 or number 16. So, and this was with the Federal Gold Medal 175 grain Match Kings. So the second time we took it out this weekend, it was roughly 70 degrees out. Ammunition temperature and ambient air temperature were both about 70 degrees. This time I got a full 20 velocities recorded, and we got an average of 2,415 feet per second and an extreme spread of 58. So conventionally speaking, when it comes to muzzle velocity variation and ammunition temperature curve, the cooler ammunition should be technically slower than the warmer ammunition as far as the temperature that the actual cartridge is, because conventionally, as you increase the temperature of the powder inside the case, it increased its volatility and increased its ignition timing and that sort of thing, and kind of made it burn hotter and produce a little more pressure and therefore a little more speed. But what we showed with this Federal Gold Medal match, 175 grain Match Kings, is that there was really no change between 80 degrees and 70 degrees. We actually gained velocity at a lower temperature, which is probably in part due to the barrel being, it's getting more and more broke in and that sort of thing. So some barrels do tend to speed up a little bit as they're, beginning to break in really. And at this point right now, after this testing was done, I'm at 80 rounds on this barrel. So we can go ahead and look at the targets that I chose to keep. This one was for the 20 shots here that I recorded for velocity, and we noticed that we got a pretty good tight group for the majority of it, and then we started getting, we got a few outliers in there, but I don't know if that was me or just a variation in the ammunition I was testing, but we did get a few outliers there. So and during that testing, I was allowing the barrel to cool to a certain point. So I decided to go ahead and shoot 3 more 5-shot groups and allow the barrel to cool about 5 minutes, 6 minutes in between, to try to keep the barrel temperature down on this rifle. And the first 5-shot group was this one here, and we're measuring roughly, I think these are 1/2 inch dots, so we're measuring roughly 3/4 to 1 inch there on that group. And then my second group, I kind of did a little bit of a scope adjustment, ended up shooting a little bit low for the most part, shot 4 and hit 1 up here. And so our group size really isn't much different, but I did notice that we got a string of 4 shots there, which were really tight. And then I tried to adjust it back up another click on the scope, and then I got 4 shots here and 1 up there. So kind of the same scenario between the two. 4 hit low and 1 hit a little higher. So moving on from that, I adjusted my charts here, which I'm going to try to show you guys. This is my ballistic chart for that 175 grain Sierra Match King, And right here we can say at 70 degrees, the 20 rounds I recorded, they averaged 24.15, and so I just run up my ballistic data for that, import it over to Excel, and fill it in. And then of course the same thing for the 80-degree chart. But you'll notice even with the 80-degree chart, even running 12 feet per second slower, we're still hitting higher at longer ranges, with that out beyond 1,000 yards. So just goes to show you, your muzzle velocity is not everything. You got to really think about the whole big picture, as far as your environment and that sort of thing goes. So after that, we got into looking at the 223 5.56, and for this, I only set one target up, and it was oriented just this way, and I ended up shooting a total of 50 shots, but none of this ammo was actually loaded exactly the same. We started out at one charge weight and finished at another, and it was really cool to see that as the charge weight was increasing, my points of impact actually started rising, and at some point it went from hitting low to hitting dead center, and then past that and started hitting a little higher. The bullets I'm running hitting this target are the 80.5 grain Berger full bore target bullets, and I'm using Hodgins Lever Evolution powder. I started out at 22 grains even, and the highest charge I got to was 24.7, and I'll show you the high charge brass just to show you what it looks like. And by the way, all of this brass this has all been neck turned. You can see where I turned the necks on the brass, and then you can look at the primers, and they are still really not showing any signs of flattening, no signs of overpressuring. So the next time I go out, I'm going to load I'm going to go ahead and load another 5 rounds at 24.7, and then I'm going to go up in 0.3 grain increments. I'm going to go up in 0.3 of a grain increments until I really start seeing signs of pressure. But right now my goal is to get to 2,700 feet per second out of this rifle, which I think is more than doable. Right now at the max load that I tested at 24.7 grains, we're running about 2,550 feet per second average, maybe a little higher, maybe about 2,560. And again, my bullet seating depth is not magazine feedable. It's a little too long to feed the magazine. Bullet seating depth on these, the OAL is 2.350, which is a little too long around the mags. This particular rifle uses standard AR-15 mags, so it's a little bit too long for that, but they single feed just fine and shoot just fine. And kind of the beauty of having this rifle, and it's chambered actually in 5.56, is it actually has a little bit more free bore than a typical 223 would have, which would allow me to seat the bullets out much further, and which in turn gives me a little more case capacity, which is where I'm at now, because according to the data that I'm using, the charge that I hit my maximum charge at should be producing around 2,700 feet per second, but I'm at like 2,560. But also with that data that I was using, the bullet seating depth is shorter than what I'm actually using. So by seating the bullet out a little further, I got a little more case capacity and a little less pressure, so I'm running a little less speed. It's just a couple things I'm going to have to get over with, and once I really kind of get this velocity up to where I want it, then we'll start adjusting bullet seating depth for barrel harmonics and try to really dial in a really tight group is what I want to do with that. So Anyways, I want to thank you guys for watching this, and if you stayed with me to the end of this thing. I know this is a long video. There was a lot going on, a lot to go over, but like I said, it was a long video, and I really appreciate those of you that stuck with it to the end, and we'll see you next time in the next video. Thanks for watching.